So I've muted, I think everybody's muted or unmuted. If you feel you need to be muted, just mute yourself. I'm not going to mute you. If you feel you need to be muted, then mute. And if you want to ask a question, you can send me a little message on the text. Okay, so hi. So last week we were talking about some of the Hayom Yoms, which spoke about the fact that during the Parsha of Lech Lecha, we get to live with Avraham Avinu every single day, and what an incredible schus it is to live with Avraham Avinu. So Ita also mentioned that it's Rochel Imeinu's Yortzeit tonight and tomorrow, or it was today. So it's the end of... Oh, so it's tonight and tomorrow. Yeah, because today was 10th. Yeah. So we have that, and we have the schus, as the Hayom Yom says, of living and being inspired with Avraham Avinu every single day. So last week, I quoted from this cousin of my husband, Yaakov Nagen, who's Rosh Yeshiva of one of the Hesder Yeshivas in Eretz Yisrael, I believe it's Utniel, very special guy, has written a beautiful book called Be, Become, and Bless. So he said he learned from his teachers that everything we need to know about reaching spiritual enlightenment, we can get just knowing the first 4 parshas, and we don't really even have to know the whole parsha, but just basically the names of the parsha. So Bereshis, in the beginning, Noach, one has to find peace and tranquility. And until you founded your peace and tranquility, you can't Lech Lecha, you can't go to yourself. And
what did you say, Bereshis says? I'm so sorry.
In the beginning.
No, just in the beginning you said, okay.
Yeah. That's the way the whole story starts. That in the beginning, you've got to find your peace, your noach, your menucha. Once you've found your peace or your menucha, then you can begin this process of lech lecha, going to yourself. And once you've gone to yourself, then Hashem can appear to you. So lech lecha. Okay, so that's going to be the whole class. So whichever way you interpret the Lech Lecha, if it's going to yourself or it's going, we're going to talk about that. That's the topic of the class. Once you do that, you're going to have the experience of, and Hashem appeared to him, or Vayera, Hashem will appear, Bezrat Hashem, to you. So you start with, the beginning begins with Bereshis, then you've got to find your Noach, your Menucha, then whatever it is we're going to discuss in the class today, Lech Lecha, then you will have the experience of what we call, well, what's called in other cultures enlightenment, or what we can say Hashem appearing to you. So I think that's kind of a nice little thing you can just put in your pocket, but Baruch Hashem, we're going to go more, we're going to go deeper into it. So Ita, who's got the schus of being my one live person here, it's like very special because it's much nicer to talk to real people also, not only on Zoom, although I love Zoom, is the question, you know, I just said Lech Lecha means go to yourself. Doesn't it mean, you know, what's the traditional, what does it mean, Lech Lecha? So if we look in the Parsha and we look at the beginning of the Chumash, because that's how this Parsha starts, it says, Vayomer Hashem el Avram, and Hashem spoke to Avram. So we see his name doesn't have the hey yet. Lech Lecha, and really the Lech Lecha in actual Lashon, right, means go to yourself. Lech Lecha, go to yourself. That's what it looks like in the Pshat. From your land, Ma'artzacha, mi molad ticha, from your birthplace, umi beis avicha, from the house of your father, el haaretz asher arecha, to the land which I will show you. So it's very famous lines and very famous words. So I just want to read you from this Rabbi Yaakov Nagin. It's so beautiful. So before we even look at Yaakov's words, and he quotes from the Zohar, but before we even look at that, if we're going to make a journey, just looking at the pshat, if we're going to make a journey and go, Lecha, Lech Lecha can also be for your own benefit. So I'm going to tell you to go, and it's for your sake, you going. Lech Lecha, for your own benefit, for your own sake. And where do you have to go? From your land. So I immigrated from South Africa. I didn't think I was coming to New York. I thought I was going to Eretz Israel, but I switched my ticket at the last moment. Go from the land, whichever place you were living, from your birthplace. What does all that mean? We can, think about it. What does it mean? And from your father's house. So this aspect of your father's house could be the values of your father. In Avraham's situation, Terach was the idol, not only an idol worshiper, but he made idols. So the traditional thing is, in my case, my family wasn't from. I left South Africa, my birthplace, my land, and my father's house. But we can go so much deeper, deeper, deeper what all these things mean. One of the aspects of when you're leaving your birthplace, your father's house, it's also all the language that your parents, have put into your head. Baruch Hashem, in my yoga work now, we're doing trauma workshops, and people are, talking about trying to grapple with traumas, and how many people have traumas from the way they were spoken to when they were younger. So you leave the house, but in your head, you've also got to leave all the messages. A therapist I was working with in a workshop said that she asked people to draw themselves on a piece of paper. And she uses less dominant hand drawing. So if you're right-handed, you use your left hand. And she said she had a 6-foot man draw a picture of himself on the piece of paper. And when she looked at the piece of paper, it was a tiny little worm. And she said, "Is this you?" And she said, "It looks like a little worm." And he said, "My father always used to tell me, 'You little worm.'" And he's 40 years old, and he's thinking of himself in that way. So going out of your land, going away from your birthplace, away from maybe the customs of that place, but also when you leave your father's house, maybe you have to leave the messages of your father's house, the messages that you received that may be holding you back. Where do you need to go? So to the land, Hashem doesn't tell us what that land is. I will show you. And we can talk a lot about the idea of having trust and faith and just going with Hashem, even in a direction that we don't know where he's leading us. We know also, we've spoken many times that it says, El ha'aretz asher arecha. The word aretz has that word ratz in it. Whenever we're running to do the ratzon of Hashem, that connects to the idea of Eretz Yisrael. So that's kind of looking at just not even looking at Rashi, just looking at the Pshat. But let's look at this beautiful quoting of the Zohar from this Yaakov Nagin. He says, in the beginning of the Pasha, Hashem told Avraham to go, get yourself Lech Lecha, out of your country, from your kindred, from your father's house. Says the Zohar interprets the apparent redundancy as an imperative to embark on a journey to the self. So it's from the Zohar. Lech, go to your own inner being. Now, this is such a it's not like a chiddush of a perush. It's not like a new, it's not a new way of understanding the pasuk. I've learned this many, many times, but I think that because we're living in such transformative times, I feel like we're really living in times that are, we're really living in times that we on the epoch. Suri, I'm going to ask you to mute yourself, sweetie. So happy to see you. Just mute your microphone, okay? Because it's a little noisy where you are. I've said so often in this shir that we're living in such transformative times, tumultuous times, that really we, in very raw, in my mind, close to Mashiach times. And we got to start getting all our ducks lined up in a row so that if Mashiach is revealed in the next 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, we're ready. So everything we're learning in Chumash starts taking on a different interpretation and a much more immediate interpretation. And when it says in the Zohar that you need to go to yourself, it really means get your act together, know who you are, know what's going on inside your own psyche, get really real to your own places within yourself that you need to do tikkun on, that you need to, you know, not just fix yourself, but know yourself. Because if we remember the first, how I started this year, we've got in the beginning, you got to get quiet, Noach, and then go to yourself, and then you'll have a revelation. So everybody says, when's Mashiach coming? I want Mashiach to come. Is he coming in Pesach? Is he going to come by the Seder? Is he coming by Shavuos? Is he going to come and dance Hakofas at Simchas Beis Sheva? When is Mashiach coming? I'm holding my breath. I'm holding my breath. Oh no, he didn't come. I'm so disappointed. But what about you? Are you really doing the work? Are you really getting to that place of Noach, of quietness, of, and this isn't even a yoga class, but can we get to that place where you stop running? Like COVID is the huge opportunity of, okay, the malls are not so much fun. The movies are shut down. The restaurants are, you know, complicated with outdoor dining and masking and whatever. So no more restaurants, no more, you know, games where we all can sit and be audiences. We got to start to get real. Lech Lecha, like, do you know yourself? Are you ready to really have a spiritual encounter with whatever it is that we want to become manifest and have an experience of, and Hashem appears to us? Because Hashem can't appear if we're running and jumping and distracting and shopping and doing all those things. Not that to live a Jewish life, we're not supposed to cook, so we do have to shop, and we're not, of course we shop, we involved in the physical world, but are we constantly distracted? Or can we start finding an experience of this Noach, this quietness, this inwardness, this beginning of an actual spiritual practice in the midst of all of the halachas and all of the, what my friend calls the tribal stuff, which is important, you know, the bar mitzvahs, the weddings, the grandchildren, Baruch Hashem, we love them, but can we start having room for a private and personal experience of going to ourselves? So let's look more to that. So you got it now, what it means? Okay. So the Zohar interprets the apparent redundancy as an imperative. That means like a command, an insistence to embark on a voyage to the self. Get lech, to yourself, lecha. To know and to rectify yourself, says the Zohar. So what does this mean, to rectify yourself? So then Yaakov Nagain switches and he starts to quote Rav Kook. He's a great guy. He's about 45. He looks about 18. He's my husband's cousin. He's gorgeous. He's got like 9 children, I think. His wife is very sweet. They're just really sweet people, and he writes these beautiful perushim on Parsha. So he says, he's quoting now from Rav Kook. And he says, Rav Kook says, I was in exile. And he's quoting of Rav Kook quotes from Ezekiel. And he says, the inner essential I, that's in exile. That I'm alienated from some part of myself. We have sinned with our fathers, the sin of Adam, who spurned his essence, who was drawn to the perspective of the snake and lost himself, and was unable to provide a clear answer to the question, where are you? Ayeka, where are you? So this is so deep. This is really so deep. It's like I was having a conversation with my husband last night, and we all know you can have a conversation and be present, and you can have a conversation and not be so present. And when we're talking to people, we want them to be present to us. And when they're not fully present, we're very aware of them not being fully present. So Hashem says to Adam, where are you? Ayeka, where are you? Are you present to yourself? Are you present to me? So let's look at those words of Rav Kook here. We have sinned. The sin of Adam, what was his sin? He spurned his essence. He was drawn to the perspective of the snake, and he lost himself. I think that's really beautiful wording, that the snake comes as this external, out there temptation of something attractive. You can have more knowledge, you can have more information, you can listen to more YouTube videos, you can take more courses, you can sign up for more self-help groups, you can be so busy with the out there, but what about the in here, in here, in here? And there's a beautiful interpretation actually of the tree of knowledge and the tree of life. That the tree of life is when you attach to your inner truth and your inner knowing. And the tree of knowledge is this grabbing to all this information out there. I need to know more. I need to keep learning, following, listening to this class and listening to that class. And I'm all for classes. I want you to listen to my class. It's but I know people who completely overdose on classes. They're always following another class, another YouTube, another course, and they never tune in to themselves. So when the snake came and said to Chava, you can be knowledgeable like Hashem, you can know all this stuff, you can be like Hashem, you can be so much more than you, she got distracted and then distracted Adam into this external knowing. So then when Hashem says, where are you? He can't answer. He doesn't know where he is. I'm going to carry on from Rav Kook. For he did not know his own soul. For his true I-ness, the I-ness had been lost to him. Thus the world continues to decline with the loss of everyone's I-ness. So it's not an I aspect as in ego and arrogance and, importance, but it's an I-ness in that I'm created b'tselem Elokim, and I have a value, and I have a uniqueness, and I have a divineness in myself. And if I'm not in touch with that, and I'm always looking out there, I'm in a state of exile. So then Hashem says to Avraham, Lech Lecha, go to your self. It gets deeper and it gets better. So Rav Kook says, for he did not know his own soul, for his true I-ness had been lost to him. Thus the world continues to decline with the loss of everyone's I. This is from Orot HaKodesh from Rav Kook. The breath of our nostrils, the anointed of the Lord. So Hashem breathed. Olivia, unmute yourself if you want to talk, because I don't hear you. Or you don't want to talk? Oh, okay. Oh, you're eating. Okay. The breath of our nostrils, the anointed of the Lord, it's saying that Hashem took his essence, the essence of his whole divinity and his everything that is amazing about Hashem, and he breathed that into us. We have it in us. So when we become alienated from the I-ness, we're becoming alienated from the godliness that was breathed into our own nostrils, into ourselves. It is not external to us. It is the breath of our nostrils. The Lord our God, we will seek. Our own I, we will seek. We will seek ourselves and we will find, I am the Lord. Okay, so this is getting very fun and interesting, because really what Rav Kook is saying and what the Zohar is saying is almost reminiscent of an Eastern idea and a Jewish idea, that when we go in and deeper in, that's where we find Hashem. We find Hashem in the inness of our own selves. So yes, we need to listen to Shiurim. Yes, we need to hear from Rabbonim what's the halacha. Yes, we need to be inspired by other people. But if we're always outside and we're never inside, then where's our spiritual experience, number one? And where is the connection to the B'Tselem Elokim? And where's the connection to the Chelek Elokai Mimal Mamish, right? It says in Tanya, each one of us has a piece, a Chelek Elokai Mimal Mamish, a piece of God above, for real. This is a piece of God above, for real. So where is that real? Where is it? So if we're not in touch with it, we can't find it. So somebody else is waiting. Okay, good. We have, who's coming? Let's see, someone else is coming. Oh, Shoshana's come. So, so let's carry on. So now I'm back to reading Yaakov commenting on the Zohar and commenting on Rav Kook. So he says, Shoshana, you're going to really like what we're saying, because we're saying that everybody has to go inwards and find the godliness within themselves and spend time doing inner excavations and inner mining the treasures within. So let me continue here. So Rav Kook reads Ezekiel's biographical pronouncement, I was in exile, as an existential statement. The I, the true identity, is exiled outside of the self. Humanity's primal sin is alienation from the self.
Can you say that again?
Yes. Humanity's primal sin is alienation from the self, the true self, the godly self, the Chelek Elokai Mimal Mamish, the aspect of Hashem, the aspect of ourselves, that is created in the image of God. That's our main sin, is that we're not connecting to the fact that we're all created in the image of God. We alienated from this godly aspect, from this soul aspect, from this I, but the I in a good way, the good I, not the ego I, but the I as me having God within me having a piece of God within myself. Our society may be rife with alienation between people, but the primary schism, according to Rav Kook, lies within the individual. So before I read more, I'm going to come back to my little rave about coronavirus. and my rave about quarantine, and my rave about shutdowns, and my rave about lockdowns, shutdowns. They all, you know, Hashem could bring change and transformation in so many ways. He can bring change with the mabul. We saw that last week. He can bring change, God forbid, with war. He can bring change with tremendous natural disasters, tsunamis and earthquakes and such. But in this case, Hashem is bringing huge change to the world, huge change to the world with a teeny tiny virus that has a 0.1, I don't know what the number is, of a mortality rate. Not to say that people aren't getting sick, because they are, and I know people well. Not to say that it's not a terrible thing, because it is, but its biggest effect on the economy and on the world and everything is a behavioral effect. There are much more people affected than people seriously ill. The seriously ill, percentage-wise, is not huge numbers, but the amount of people who are affected in terms of their behavior and their lifestyle and their consciousness is huge. It's every single person on the face of the globe is affected. And what's the effect? The effect is stop running out and start going in. Stop being out there with 1 million people at your parties and 250 people at your weddings, or 350, or your bar mitzvahs of 200. And it's now, you're having a wedding. Who are the 25 people who have to be there? You're having a Pesach Seder. How many people had a Pesach Seder and said for the first time they were alone and they actually read the Haggadah and got it on a whole new level, because there's so much less outside and so much more of a push inside. So this is why I feel that these times are training ground. It's like if you're a gardener and you're going to plant seeds, before you plant the seeds, you have to till the earth and turn it upside down. And our earth is being turned upside down. We just hope that it's getting ready for good seeds, right? So what's the seed? So let's go back to the beginning. In the beginning, Noach, find rest. Then Lech Lecha, go to yourself. And then Vayera, you'll have an experience of Hashem. So Corona is a big opportunity. It doesn't mean everybody's going to do it, but it's an opportunity for people to start to refocus their energies and try and mine this infinitude of what it is that is our inner being. What does it mean? So let's read on.
I would think first I should be we should go, and then be not.
No, you can't. You can't go in when you're running. You have to stop running. You have to get quiet. Even if you're going to daven, you can't daven if you're busy. You have to make time to daven. If you're going to meditate, you can't meditate unless you sit down and get still. Yeah, well, it can work both ways, but in a way, in order for you to make that journey really to yourself, you kind of have to get a little quiet, turn off the noise, switch off the phone, shut the front door and lock it so no one's going to visit, you know, cancel your appointments for a few hours or something, and then you can begin the journey. But if you, in the middle of, you're on your phone, you're driving, your kid is talking to you, and you're late for your appointment, how are you going to do it? You've got to create a space of Noach in order to begin the journey. So let's read on. Our society may be rife with alienation between people, but the primary schism, according to Rav Kook, lies within the individual. Thus, we are incapable of answering Hashem's question, where are you? Hashem asked Adam in Gan Eden, where are you? Ayeka, where are you? Rav Kook goes on to draw a bold, astonishing conclusion. When we seek and find ourselves, our essential I. This is pretty bold what he's going to say. We discover that I am the Lord your God. That God dwells within us. This is pretty awesome. This is Rav Kook, based on Ezekiel, drawing also on the Zohar. That God dwells within us. When I am true to myself, I find that transcendence, holiness, and the wellspring of life are all manifested in me. Hashem exists within me, and I within him. So this is like the quintessential spiritual, lessons of so many different cultures, is how to get to that place, how to get to that place, how to get to that place. But at least we should know that that place is within. And I've been religious really for a long time, almost like 45 years. It's like
Wow.
a long time. I'm just not even so much older than 45. So my whole life I spent a lot of time learning what it means to be Jewish, what are the halachas, what are the holidays, what are the parshas, what are the rules, how do you dress. It's all very good stuff. But to have a real relationship with Hashem means that, and I'll talk personally for me, is that I need to appreciate that I have something inside of me that instead of, and this Shoshana, I hope Shoshana is liking this because this is what Shoshana always tells me, but I have something within me, and each one of us has it within ourselves, that it's not so much going out to the shul, going out to the shiur, going out to only do the mitzvah, but it is going inwards to really feel the spiritual connection opening up and becoming available. Now, for me, I can experience it learning Torah, reading. I can feel guided. I can feel hashgacha practice. I can feel flow. I can feel a lot of things. But to get more menuachdik and to really explore this aspect of going inside oneself, it's not so easy. And I'll just say that there is a difference in that aspect in a Jewish way and in a Eastern way, because I said that they're similar, but in an Eastern way, you go in and you explore this beautifulness of your inner landscape, and that's kind of a value and a destination and an end point of the destination. But in Judaism, we're going in, we want to find that connection, we want to find that that wealth and that treasure, but then because we're Jewish, we have to come out again and act in the world and do what the conservatives and the renewals and the more secular Jews like to call, I don't even know if they're secular, but the
Tikkun olam.
Tikkun olam. That is,
They love that word. That's their favorite.
yes, somehow they grabbed onto that phrase, and I don't know, it's not really more theirs than ours, but this aspect that in our tradition we want to go in and we want to find that treasure within, and we want to be nourished by that treasure within. But we do know that Avraham was different than Noah. Avraham argued with Hashem. Avraham, I heard a beautiful thing from Shlomo Katz today, that what's the difference? What was one of the differences between Noah and Avraham? So there's the difference between listening to the words in a conversation and listening to the spaces between the words in a conversation.
Ooh, I like that.
When Hashem told Noah that he's going to destroy the world, then there was a space. And Hashem wanted Noah to say, no, you shouldn't do that. But Noah said, okay, I'll build a teva if you're asking me to build a teva. Whereas when Hashem spoke to Avraham and said through the Malach, you know, Sodom is going to be destroyed, then Avraham, in a very Jewish way, then says, no, 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 maybe they're 50 tzaddikim, maybe they're 40 tzaddikim, maybe they're 20, maybe there's 10. I think 30, I missed out 30. But the Jewish way is to engage with the world and come from that place where you've made your connection and you found the God within and you've connected to the truth of godliness within yourself. And then what are you going to do about it? Then go out and reveal godliness in the world, make a dira b'tachtonim, help other people make that connection, but don't do it from an empty barrel, do it from a point of connection and of having this deep inner resource. So that was one thing. I just want to quickly go back to last week. I know that I said it already, but I just want to say it again because Ita didn't hear it and I wanted to hear it. Just last week, we spoke about the Tower of Babel. And it's interesting because the Tower of Babel is another part of this whole what's going on in the world now. How the people try to, you know, gather together and, you know, create this narrative that we all in this together, building this big, you know, tower of reality of, you know, one language, one thinking, one speak, one worldview. And Hashem says, I don't want that. I want dispersion. I want everyone, you know, fixing the world and being themselves and inhabiting the world and being different and being themselves. So in a way, there's a big pressure in the world today now, conforming to, you know, everybody should think the same. Everybody should, you know, conform to these broad strokes of ideology. And in a way, Hashem is like, I don't want another Tower of Babel, but that's just, I don't know why I felt it necessary to throw that in a completely.
Because it was one of the best years you ever gave. It was a knockout year.
But thank you so much, Susan. I want to say a little bit more about this, though, before we finish. And it's a Rebbe Nachman and a little piece of Rebbe Nachman. And I just have to tell you that I haven't prepared it so well. It's a little rough, but it's on this topic of going in and finding from what's within. And it's probably I could prepare it better. It was about 15 minutes from the time that the shir started. And I'm like, Hashem, you got to just help me out here. And I found it and it's beautiful. And it's about Avraham being the first tzaddik. So he couldn't really learn from anyone. There was no one to give him guidance and to teach him. So what did he have to do? He had to go within and he had to mine the depths of his own being in order to learn Torah. So I have some of it down, but I don't have all of it down. So I'm going to try my best to give it over in the 10 minutes that we have left. So it's Lekutei Moharan chapter or lesson 142, and I'm just going to read it in English. But it's really the footnotes that are the most exciting part. Someone who cannot study Torah at all, for example, is either unlearned or has no holy book or is in a wilderness, but his heart is a light lit up within him and he greatly longs to study Torah and serve Hashem. In such a case, his heart's desire to study Torah is itself an aspect of learning from a holy book. So right off, that's like a beautiful Rebbe Nachman, that if you can't learn, you don't have a teacher, you left your chitas at your chayenu at home, you're on a bus, your phone died, you can't access any Torah at all. You're really in, bad situation. Plus your backpack you left somewhere else also. So what are you going to do? So Rebbe Nachman says your learning, your desire, your yearning to learn is itself an aspect of learning from a holy book. So that's a very beautiful thing. So, and then always yearn to come closer to Hashem. The yearning of the heart, the Rebbe teaches here, is itself like learning from a holy book. And then it continues, for there are two tzaddikim in the world. They speak to each other, though they're separated from one another by many hundreds of miles. One tzaddik over here raises a question in the Torah, difficult question. And then there's another tzaddik over there who suddenly finds himself saying something which is answering the question raised by the first tzaddik. And it could be vice versa. And in a way, they're answering each other's questions and they don't even realize it, because one is not even aware that the other one is posing the question. And the only one who's aware of this kind of debate and dialogue, one tzaddik posing a question and another tzaddik answering the question, the only one who really knows about this is Hashem himself. In this way, they're conversing with each other, yet no one hears this, just Hashem himself, just the Holy One himself. So, and then he's talking about, Rabbi Nachman is talking about learning, and somehow when one person is trying to learn a piece of Torah and suddenly it becomes easy for them to get it, whereas before they couldn't get it, it's because another tzaddik has made a breakthrough or enabled himself to learn it. And it's kind of like a Jungian idea of the communal subconscious, that when one person is learning, that learning goes into the world and empowers someone else to learn. So we didn't get to the Avraham Avinu part, but it's coming. And then it says, then those who fear Hashem conversed with each other, and Hashem heard it, and then when he hears this conversation, so to speak, he writes it into a book of remembrance. This is like a book of holy learning, or a book of holy kavanas, so to speak. So he says, this book, which these words and these yearnings have been written into, is an aspect of the heart that exists above. So what is this heart that exists above? This is an aspect of Bina, a sphera, a supernal consciousness, an aspect of understanding that exists in the world, in the sphirot and in a person themselves. And Rabbi Nachman, in another place, he talks about that this supernal heart, this otherworldly level of understanding is compared to a rock. I'm going very quickly, and I know this is not so comprehensive, but I'm rushing, but it's worth it. It's compared to a rock. This rock, or a supernal heart, listen to this, we're coming to a beautiful, beautiful image. Are you ready? This supernal rock, this supernal heart, or this rock, is the rock that Moshe struck, from which water started pouring down. Beautiful, right? Now this water, whenever water is pouring down, it's always wisdom, and it's always Torah knowledge, and it's always it's Torah and wisdom and well springs. So when they didn't have water in the desert, why? Because Miriam had passed away, and Miriam was like a mashpia, and she was a teacher, and suddenly the water got kind of locked up and they couldn't access the water, and then they started fighting. So when Moshe hit the rock, he's releasing water, he's releasing well springs, and he's releasing Torah teachings. And this is part of this rock. Okay, so now he's going to come to Avraham, and he's going to say that Avraham had no one to learn from, but Avraham tuned into his own heart and his own well springs. Let's try and get there. So, when a person's heart is aflame within himself and he learns to study Torah, but it's impossible for him to do so for some reason, he doesn't have his books, he doesn't have his teachers, whatever, he receives heart from the heart of above. He's connecting to the supernal Bina. His own yearning is going to connect him to the sphere of supernal understanding above, which we're going to call, in inverted commas, a book of remembrance. And from there, his heart receives its yearning. This is the aspect of studying Torah from a holy book. Literally, it's a metaphorical book. It's the yearning of his own heart. Okay, I just better get to the kunst, to the what's it called? To the ikar here, right? To the climax. It goes on and it goes on and it goes on, and then it says, therefore, Avraham, who was the first convert. Now, he wasn't really a convert. He was really a Baal Tshuva, but he's called like a convert. He had no one from whom to learn from, but only a heart that greatly yearned for the service of Hashem. How did Avraham receive? It was this yearning that helped him receive from this heart, this sphere of Bina above, which is called a book of remembrance. At that time, there were no tzaddikim in the world, and the insights which the souls had originated prior to creation were written on this heart, this rock, this supernal sphere of Bina. In other words, how did Avraham access it? Through the great yearning that was within his own heart. So he had no teachers, he had no chitas, he had no chayenu. What did he have? He had the yearning in his heart. And the yearning in his heart was what was able to connect him to the supernal sphere of Bina, which is compared to a source of wisdom which exists in a higher dimension, which is really the sphere of Bina in an aspect, in a certain way. That's why Avraham was called our rock. As it is written, look to the rock from where you were hewn. This is Avraham. He was an aspect of the rock of my heart because all he had was a heart that yearned for Hashem. And we are all coming from Avraham. We are all of us who yearn to make a connection and yearn to learn. We all called Nadive, nobles of the nations, the nation of God, of Avraham. We are a nation, Nadiv, of generous heart. They have nothing but their longing of their hearts for the Holy One, just like Avraham. So I wanted to give that piece. It's not, I haven't, there's more in it. Maybe I'll prepare it, and we're going to be living with Avraham for another little while. I'll try and learn it with all the parts intact, but that's the general gist, that the yearning has a value. And just like Moshe took his stick and hit the rock, so too, if you imagine that your yearning can be the stick that knocks on the rock to release the wisdom. But that's actually really messing with the mixed metaphor. But the yearning in yourself, the yearning within Avraham is what unlocked the learning for him. It was his yearning that unlocked the yearning, and then connecting that to what we learned in the beginning of the shir, which is that within ourselves we have this connection, we have these treasures, we have this information, we have this essence of godliness, and we need to learn how to plow that field, so to speak.
Or tap into it.
And tap into it. So I'm going to, I really want to open now to